one thing that I've said for a long time is I'm not afraid to hurt your feelings, because when you find that you've been triggered, or you find like something that kind of gets under your skin or just really hits home, that's when the most deep healing happens.
Hey everyone, my name is Sarah and welcome to Her Ascension Story, the podcast that proves the world is transformed by every hero's personal adventure. Here we talk about the real and the raw things that we should all be talking about more. So if you want to be a part of the movement of getting real about the deeper, more meaningful things about life, be sure to subscribe and follow and get ready to get real. My hope is that this platform inspires you to explore and expand new empowering beliefs about yourself so you can make your own impassionate impact too. And those three pillars, inspiration, independence, and impact, aren't just the premise for this podcast, but for my work too. If you want to check out that more, be sure to go to herascensionstory.com or check me out on social media at Her Ascension Story. Today with me I have Ashley Holsopple. Ashley is an intuitive channel and creatrix, a Reiki master teacher, a crystal healing practitioner, shadow worker, tarot oracle card reader, and dedicated student of the universe. Her deepest desire is to help beautiful souls see their own power and light through shadow work, intentional living, and inspired action. Thank you so much, Ashley, for being here with me today.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Okay, so we're just going to get right into it because I have a feeling this is going to be a really juicy episode. So I love the work that you're doing, especially with shadow work. I think that that's something in the soulful community that a lot of people aren't necessarily bringing to light or really making aware and acknowledging and owning. Were you always like that, or?
Not really. I feel like I had to do shadow work for myself because I had a lot of like childhood trauma that I was working through. A lot of like mother wound, father wound stuff that I had to really understand. And I noticed in the spiritual community, it was a lot of like love and light, and it's all about the light. But if you don't delve into your shadows, you're not balancing yourself. So I just feel like a lot of the work that I do with like crystals and healing pieces that I make for clients, it's a lot of shadow work for them. It's pulling up things that they may not want to look at, but it's going to be for their highest good. And it just kind of happened naturally over the last maybe 10 years or so. But as a child, no. When I was younger, it wasn't like that at all.
That's amazing. So as a child, would you consider yourself spiritual, or were you interested in the deeper things about life, or how did you evolve into who you are today?
Growing up, I was actually a faith-based child. I was a church kid, but I wasn't a church kid because my parents went to church. I was a church kid because I wanted to go to church. I craved community. I felt really alone in that community, though. I felt like there was a lot more and a lot other things that people weren't talking about and connecting with. But I just craved being a part of something so much, and just being accepted and belonging. That's like the big thing. It's like I just wanted to belong. And I just felt, even in that community, I didn't find myself. And then it just kind of developed over the years. Things would happen in my life, traumas would happen, and I would start collecting, different tools like crystals and not really know why. And then, years later, I come to find that those are my allies in my life. But I just, I had weird experiences, like past life memories coming up at random times. I had connections with fairies and aliens and other beings that would happen when I was a kid. And I knew there was something more out there. I just didn't know what it was until I had one of my biggest traumas in my life. And that kind of opened up everything for me.
Yeah, I definitely can understand how traumas really open our eyes and make us question things more. I want to go back real quick to what you said about working with fairies and aliens, because I think a lot of people listening that's definitely going to be an intriguing point. So how did that impact you? How did that influence your journey?
Well, there was this one house that we lived at when I was a kid, and I had a lot of experiences at that house, mostly just there. where I would wake up in the middle of the night and there would be like a little creature sitting on my bed, and it was a fairy. Or my brother and I both had alien memories from from childhood that we never talked about, that we didn't remember until later on. And just, it was the past life stuff that would come through, that would just connect to those other realms that, you know, at that time my parents were going to church, but I was just like, oh, I'm just my imagination's just, you know, big. But I have a lot of alien stuff comes through because I'm a starseed, and that is, I feel like it was maybe connecting to the star races of my soul lineage, and that really kind of changed. The more I understood it now in the last maybe 5 years, really understanding that part of me and how that connection was just trying to get my attention in a way.
That's amazing. That's so interesting. So, how did you actually balance out going to church and having that kind of traditional spiritual foundation with this mega esoteric galactic connection that you had?
I pushed it down, honestly. I didn't really think anything of it as being a spiritual thing, until like later on, and I realized what was actually happening. And I just really, like, I also had like deep connections to things in like the Bible, like Mary Magdalene, and how, you know, she was seen as this, you know, prostitute and whore, and, you know, the 7 demons and all of that. But I knew there was more to her story. There was more like a deeper connection to like her purpose in everything. And like that started to come through even more the more I would research and just connect with the energy. But I mean, I kind of had to break up with God in a way to kind of find my spiritual roots. Like, and it just, things shifted. And, you know, I still have, you know, a lot of the beliefs now as I had as a child, but now it's more of a source energy than a God energy, I guess. They just kind of moved into a more openness, I guess, and more accepting than a very rigid understanding of the world.
I can completely resonate with that. I love how you said I had to break up with God. When I was 10, I remember declaring myself as not necessarily a non-believer, but I just kind of renounced God. And I grew up Catholic and going to Catholic school and going to Catholic church and being an altar server and all of these different involvements with the church, and like youth group and confirmation. Throughout all of that, I really tried to understand. I kind of broke up with God in a sense that I didn't believe, but I was open to learning and seeing what agreed with me. But then as I continued to grow up, I had the same kind of revelation that it became more source, more universal, rather than having like this father figure that kind of wanted you to do the right thing. And if you did a bad thing, then you were going to get punished and all that kind of stuff. And I also had similar experiences as a sensitive child, you know, involving spirits or ghosts or whatever you want to call them, and trying to balance that out with what my priest would say and what my doctor would say. I remember my parents told my pediatrician to tell me that ghosts weren't real, just to kind of shut me up and not make them afraid. And, yeah, it's definitely, it adds a lot of confusion and frustration, I feel like, as a child and as a developing mind in this modern world, to do that and to kind of find yourself. Did you experience the same kind of frustration and confusion?
Oh, definitely. I have 2 stark memories of like past life information coming through. I had received this Cabbage Patch doll for a present for my birthday when I was like maybe like 9 or 10. And I had this memory of like, this was my baby. I actually birthed this baby. And it started to freak me out. I'm 10 years old and I'm thinking like, this is my baby. I remembered having birth or giving birth to a child. And I was like, what is this? And I had
Wow.
nothing to do with this little doll baby. And I couldn't handle it. And then around the same time, I had a memory of that I went in my parents' bedroom. I don't remember having a knife in my hand, but they said that I had a knife in my hand and I kept saying I was supposed to be a boy. I'm supposed to be a boy. And I had no idea why I was doing it. Like, it was just like this memory coming out. Like, I remember being a boy, and it was just so weird. Like, those memories coming out. I was like, 10 years old. Like, where are these coming from? And it was just, other just weird instances like that of things that I shouldn't know about, or memories of my parents from my childhood of like, I actually have visual memories of things, the stories they would tell me, but I saw it through their eyes. It's just weird, like stuff like that.
Wow. So how did you cope with all of this? I mean, weirdness is obviously a good word for it because it's just not normal,
Yeah.
But how did you cope with all of this as you're trying to go to school and be a quote unquote normal kid,
I
or
was never a normal
go
kid.
go about your go about your day as you?
I honestly don't know. I think I just, my parents just brushed it off as, I was just, my imagination was running wild. And I never felt like I fit in anywhere. And I just kind of dealt with it. Um, I was never really a normal kid, I guess. Like, I always just felt like I didn't belong here. And that, later on comes into that starseed resonance. Like, you don't feel like you belong here because you're not from here. Um, it just, yeah. It's a good question. I don't know how I dealt with it. I think I just kind of held on to it as we'll deal with this later kind of thing. And as I grew up, I kind of understood it more, and it was all fine.
That's powerful. That's amazing. So explain what a star seed is to you. Like, how would you define being a star seed, what a star seed is, all that good stuff?
So a starseed is a soul that did not originate on Earth. When you first come into existence, you could start in another star system or on Earth, or as an energetic being or an angel or any kind of energy thing, I guess. So like, for me, being a starseed just means that I've come to the Earth to help it expand, to help it evolve. And my divine purpose is basically just to help people find their lessons and find their learning. So like, my starseed lineage, for example, was I began in Lyra, which is a feline planet, which is why I feel like I connect so deeply with cats in this life. And then from there, I moved to Orion. Orion is a constellation you can actually see with your naked eye at night. When I was a child, I would actually talk to that constellation like I was calling home. I have like memories of sitting on the porch and just like giving it all of my worries, and just kind of letting it know that like I was still here. Like, hey, like I don't, I know I don't know why I connect with you, but like I know that you're part of my life. And then I came here. I was recently told that my first incarnation here, apparently when you come as a starseed, you come as animals when you first come onto this plane, because it's easier for you to integrate the energies. So I was told that I came here as a bluebird, or a blue jay was my first incarnation here. And in this lifetime, I love blue jays. I've loved them forever. They just fascinate me, and they come to me with messages all the time. So it's like little intricacies that kind of happen with stuff like that from past lives or from starseed lineages and stuff that just really make more sense the more you learn. But a lot of starseeds don't feel like they belong here. They feel like they have a higher purpose, but it's hard for them to find it because there's so much earth gunk here, where we have to kind of push through the human experience to really find those purposes. A lot of they're really highly sensitive people, meaning like loud sounds could bother them, or harsh tones, or a lot of people could be on the spectrum, the autism spectrum, because they're accessing higher dimensions, and they're just trying to filter all the earth gunk. So it's being a starseed is just definitely a different experience.
Yeah, for sure. And as some people out there might think that this is really way out there and weird and everything like that. But when we really look at it, ancient civilizations and not even like not so ancient, like shamanism, Native Americans, indigenous tribes all over the world, the Aborigines, this is common knowledge and common wisdom for them. And do you feel like there are so many people out there right now alive, especially young children, that could be star seeds without even realizing it or knowing it or remembering where they came from or anything like that?
Oh, totally. I mean, there's, things called indigo children or crystal children where they have these connections and where they see things on a different level and they're misunderstood. And then they start to act out or they have, emotional problems because they don't understand. Um, and I just, it is definitely a weird thing to talk about. I, just because, you'd say you're basically an alien. I mean, it's, kind of strange. It wasn't something that I was like, when I first heard it, I was like, what the heck is that? Like, I'm a what? What does that even mean? But I just feel like it, when you understand the other parts of your soul and the way that things are moving for you in your energy, it just helps you find that deeper purpose, that like, what am I supposed to do here? And these pieces are what kind of help us get to that point.
Yeah, definitely. Wow. So you said that you knew that you were here to do something. And as you continued growing into yourself and growing into your sensitivity and your intuition, was there a defining moment that you were like, oh, this is a light bulb moment? I now know what I'm born to do? Or
It wasn't like a light bulb moment. It really happened in 2010, was where it kind of the kickoff point started. I had been collecting crystals and tarot decks, but I never really like sat down and really like fully and like pulled them into my energy because I didn't really know how. But in 2010 was like one of the worst years of my life. Tara's my spouse's father had a heart condition. It's called the Widowmaker, where we almost lost him. And then I lost my job. My spouse's grandmother passed away, and then a month later, my brother passed away at 19 years old from drunk driving. And it really shifted everything for me. It was kind of like my awakening, which is like a really, it's finding beauty in the pain kind of thing. I know that was supposed to happen to really catapult me onto this path. And he's actually one of my guides and my masters now. So I know that his energy was here meant to help me expand. And from there, everything has kind of changed. I started to, connect the crystals more often. On his 1-year anniversary, I actually made my first crystal grid. Sorry about that. The tarot deck started to open up more to me. And then everything just kind of happened. I didn't really I haven't really had to try to open up a lot to everything. It's kind of like slowly started coming out more and more. And the more I work with it, like the more I offer, client sessions or create pieces, the more it expands and expands, because it's just like a muscle. The more you use it, the more it works for you.
I totally agree with that. And I think it was the same for me too. There wasn't necessarily a defining light bulb moment. It was kind of the universe aligning me, being at the right place at the right time, meeting the right people, having the right conversations that just kind of catapulted me to where I am today. And of course, it wasn't a straight line. It was zigzagging and up and down and all over and all around. But that's what we have to do in order to learn and to really acquire all the tools and all the wisdom that we need to do what we have to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So, what have been the biggest obstacles to get where you are today?
Probably a lot of the emotional wounds from my childhood. Like my parents both had a lot of their own traumas that they were dealing with from their own childhoods that, seeped into my own. And I see now, that they were just doing the best that they could. But a lot of those things caused a lot of, my emotional wounds that I had to kind of push through. And when I was in my early 20s, I really just didn't want to be awake. I didn't want to, deal with my life. I was super unhappy, and I started to get into prescription drugs. And I, had for several years, I had a pretty bad addiction to it. I would spend every dime that I had to get pills. And I met my wife, and things started to shift. I was obviously more happy. I was starting to see, traumas that I had and things I was working through. And then one night, I had found out something about my mom that really upset me because I hadn't been speaking to her for a while, and I tried to commit suicide. Or I didn't. Let's change it. I didn't try to commit suicide. I was almost to the point of trying, and then I realized that I didn't want my wife to find me like that. And it just really affected like my viewpoint of how my actions affect other people. The things that I'm doing could cause somebody else harm. So that really kind of changed a lot of that for me. And then losing my brother obviously was a big adversity. That's a lot more family trauma with that. Just because of how young he was, and the drug and alcohol addiction that runs in my family's, and just trying to find purpose in all of it. So they're probably the two biggest ones I can think of.
Wow. That's a lot, and that's really big work. Do you feel like there were any risk factors or fears or any concerns at all that you had about actually diving into your healing, into the darkness, into your shadow, into all of the shit that most people don't want to even acknowledge or own or accept or try to work through in their lives?
Oh, totally. It's definitely, no one ever wants to see their crap. You don't want to look at yourself and, see the things that you may have done in a negative light, or the things that you regret, or any of that stuff. No one wants to see that or have to revisit it. And to have to think about, some of the traumas and things that I'd gone through, and have to, figure out, well, why did that happen? Or why is this person this way? Or it was a lot of like self-worth. Am I worthy of feeling better? It just really comes into that, like, those feelings of you're not good enough. You are, you're not supported. No one loves you. No one likes you. And that all comes into that shadow work, aspect, like just really not wanting to see yourself, because what if your biggest fears are what you find? And a lot of the times you find the reasons why those are not real in the shadows. Because it's when you go into the shadows is when you fully understand the light and the spirit and everything that's in your life.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, I love that so much. What was the most empowering or helpful thing that you either did or learned through those experiences?
Well, it really made me question how I show up in my life. Am I really living? Am I really loving? And am I being authentic in who I am? Because a lot of the times, the experiences with my parents was, or just unhappy, or didn't think they could, be who they wanted to be, and just really trying to just am I living my life the way that, my purpose is? Am I happy right now? And that's, in life, people talk about, like, the small talk stuff, like, are you going to college, or you have a family, but they never ask you, are you happy? And I feel like that's such a big, impactful thing to ask somebody, because it really makes you, like, see things in a different light. Why am I not happy? Why is it not a priority to me? Am I living from my heart space? And that's one of my biggest things, is living and filtering everything through my heart space, and really, am I doing this through love, or am I doing this through fear? And that's really one of the biggest takeaways from everything that I've kind of gone through.
That powerful self-questioning sounds like such a positive turning point for everybody, really, for our stories, when we actually start to look at our lives and ask ourselves the hard questions instead of just ignoring and numbing and everything else. Yeah, I definitely see that as the way through.
Mm-hmm.
Do you agree with that?
Totally. Yeah, completely.
Oh man. Wow. So what sort of goals or dreams have come to fruition because of this transformation process of yours?
Well, I mean, I own my own business, which to me is still like a what the fuck kind of thing. Like, I'm able to hold, like, sacred space for people to just find themselves and to delve deeper into their own healing, which this work is just so humbling. I was actually talking to somebody today about a piece that I made for her, and she just talked about how it's so incredibly beautiful. Like, every piece that I create for her is just so on the mark. And it's like, it's not coming from me. I'm a vessel from spirit, and I'm just, to be chosen to do this work, it's so awe-inspiring to me. Like, it makes me, like, tear up. Like, I'm just so grateful for every moment and every client, or person that I get to experience in all of their own pure, beautiful light and potential. And other goals and things, I want to keep following and delving deeper into my heart space, and just being of service to my community, and what showing up exactly where they are, and just being here for them.
Oh, I love that. That's so inspiring to hear how humble you are about your work, because I think it was a few years ago, at least 2017, that I actually commissioned you to make my very first mala, my prayer bead set. And I remember I chose the option. It was a pocket mala, so I could take it anywhere. So, I could actually stay consistent and really actually do it. And I remember I ordered, like, the extra little bit where you could get, like, where you would pull some cards to do the custom piece. And so I didn't know why I needed this mala. I just knew that I wanted it, and that I needed to adopt this practice into my meditations so that I can expand. And so I just remember I chose the option where you would pull the cards and you would get the messages, and everything would just kind of flow through you. And it was exactly what I needed. Just like you said, your other client said. I mean, all the way down to the point, not just the stones that you picked, but the intention that you put in it. And every single time I hold it, it just reminds me to come back to that intention that you knotted every bead with. And it's still just as powerful, if not more powerful, than the first day that I held it. And I just remember thinking, like, this woman is so incredible. How is she so humble? And now I'm just, like, hearing your story, and the actual, like, phoenix rising, coming from that place of addiction and darkness and everything else, and seeing what you're doing now, and to see that you see yourself as a vessel and just letting things flow through you. That's so inspiring. Absolutely.
Thanks, Sarah. It's so weird to like hear people talk about you well, me like that. Like I don't know. It's still like I'm still working through my own like self-worth, issues. And whenever I create something, I still always have those fears that what if they hate it? And I've never had that happen, but I still have those niggling, like those human emotions that come in when I know that I'm working through spirit. So it's like I have to stop and pause and, this is not about you. This is, about what spirit knows and what, it's intelligent energy, and it's just the way that it works.
Definitely. And I think I have the same sort of ego prompts too. And something that I've kind of been diving more into is seeing that those questions that pop up, like, what if they hate this? What if they don't agree with what I'm saying? Or what if I upset them? Or what if I don't satisfy them or please them? I guess is what it comes down to, that people pleasing complex.
Yeah.
And every time I use it as an opportunity to invite my ego to sit down at the table and be like, okay, just say everything that you want to say, get it out, get it off your chest. Obviously, you need to be heard, and invite my soul in to be kind of the director and taking the lead and saying, like, no, like, this is perfectly okay. This is what we're here to do. And to use that chance as a confirmation opportunity, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of switches it more into an empowering space, but oftentimes it's just a really good reality check to also become humble in our humanity, I think, too.
Yeah, for sure.
So how else do you see your work impacting the world and other transformation processes of other people?
Well, I'm kind of like a spirit-led cheerleader. I absolutely love witnessing people when they find their voices, when they find their truths, and when they find that connection to spirit for the first time, or even just delving deeper into it. It just makes my soul sing so much. And that's really what I want to do. I just want people to be able to see how much pure potential and power they have, and how sovereign their energy is, and how many options and ways they can just step into those moments of understanding and seeing themselves the way that I see them. I absolutely love witnessing people exactly where they're at. And it just, my business, I have, things coming up for more expansion for myself and for my business, but they're all heart-centered for people to settle into their own hearts and to just show them, different tools they can use, and just how they can find that everything they already need is already inside of them, and they don't really need me, and they can do it themselves. And when someone finds that inner power, it's just a really beautiful moment for them and for me. And I know that I'm doing my purpose and being, that cornerstone, I guess, for their expansion too.
That's amazing. Your authenticity definitely rubs off on your work. And I totally agree with what you said about letting people learn and see and discover within themselves that they are all that they need. Like, they don't need a teacher, they don't need a healer. They can do everything that you do on their own. And so you're planning on giving people more tools to do it, or what are your plans? You don't have to share if it's something that you want to keep to yourself for now, but what are
Everything's
those
still
plans? Okay.
yeah, I'm still in like that sacred container phase where I'm like kind of letting everything flow and expand before I share all the details. But I have a really beautiful energy work that I'm going to be offering soon, that just helps people see how they can find themselves on a deeper level, I guess, and just see all of the beautiful pieces that I see. And just other, energy work. Like, we have new crystal grids that we've hand drawn that are coming out, like wood boards, and just other like tarot and oracle offerings that are like a deeper level than the other ones that I've just offered basic ones in the past as well.
That's definitely exciting. So where can people find you and your work so that they can keep up to date on all of these exciting new adventures you're about to embark on?
I am an Instagram, like I love Instagram. I'm not a big Facebook person, but I am on Instagram, at the Grove Apotheca. I am on Facebook as well, the same name, the Grove Apotheca. And then I will be shifting all of my things onto Etsy. I have an Etsy shop already, the same, Grove Apotheca, all the same across all platforms to make it easy for people to find me.
Nice.
And a lot of our offerings, like physical tools and stuff, are on the Etsy shop.
Oh, awesome. Well, I know I'm definitely going to be checking that out. I love your work so much. Before we started recording, I was telling you that I've been following you on Instagram since 2016, and every single post, it hits so deep. And I don't know if you intentionally like try to make it cut so deep, but it really does. And it, like I said, your authenticity just, it ripples out, and everything that you say, it's just so triggering, but in the ways that people need today, I feel like.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I've said for a long time is I'm not afraid to hurt your feelings, because when you find that you've been triggered, or you find like something that kind of gets under your skin or just really hits home, that's when the most deep healing happens. And I'm very particular about how I word things, just because I want, and I don't ever post anything that's like, I'm going to post this week and post that next week. It all comes to me in the moment. I really don't ever want to offer something or talk about something that I'm not personally feeling in that moment too, because I know that if I'm feeling it, someone else is feeling it too. And I just want, that the spirit just speaks, and I just have to kind of follow, I guess, all of that. And I forgot to mention that I do have a website. That was really silly of me. A lot of my energy work stuff is on my website, so thegroveapotheca.com. I'm on all platforms apparently. So
Oh yeah, you're rocking it for sure. Oh, definitely. Okay, so my final question for you is one that I asked my last guest, and I'm so excited to continue asking every single guest, because I think it's prompting for not just you, but for the listeners too, to ask themselves. But the question is, who is the superhero inside of you that has all the power you could ever need?
Who is the superhero? Oh man. Like an actual superhero, or just like a archetype kind of thing?
However you interpret it.
Okay. Sorry. My brain
No.
was like, I need to analyze this. Hold on. No, I think that I connect with the idea of the magician of the tarot so much, because the magician is the reminder that you have everything within you already, all the tools that you have, and it's just like pure mercurial like magic, and just being open to seeing magic in all ways, and not necessarily, it can be like, witchy magic, or it can be just spirit, and I think that's magic. I think that, imagination and intuition is all magic, and the magician just really resonates with my soul, because I want to find magic in everything, and I want to find, just the beauty in everything that's around me.
You definitely do that, 100%. I think that's probably the most apparent thing about you. So that's awesome that what is inside of you is so easily reflected outside. It's really beautiful.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for coming on here. It's seriously my honor to have you, and I appreciate you so much for opening up and sharing your vulnerable story so that we can impact more people's transformation stories themselves.
I'm honestly so stoked to be able to talk to you, and this is our first time we've actually talked on the phone or in person-ish.
I know.
We met each other online, like we've been each other's little cheerleader, like, keep going, you're so awesome, for so long. And this is our first like real conversation, like on the phone or whatever, but it's just really, really awesome to connect with you, and I'm so glad that we've met on Instagram and just connected that way.
Oh, I'm so appreciative too. The gratitude is definitely exceeding tenfold right now. Oh, awesome. Okay, guys, so if you've gotten any value out of this at all, please share so that we can expand our inspiration and our impact together. And of course, look forward to more amazing stories. Thank you so much for being here. I love you guys. Chat soon. I want to thank you for listening to this podcast. I hope that this episode has some way inspired you to take control, given you the tools to feel secure and on fire in your own independence, and help to unlock within you the impact that you're here to make. You're not born with a purpose. You're born as your purpose. It's already inside of you, and it's your responsibility in this life to live that in the truest way possible. If you've gotten any sort of value out of this episode, please share it so that we can together expand our inspiration and our impact in this world.